No, that is my view.
That's your view?
Yeah, let me see if I can get my camera to.
Oh my
This is
God. Oh, that's
that's
a veranda or
that's right. This is my little office, and uh behind me, you can't see it that well because it's way up in the back, is Monte Sueños, which means the mountain of dreams.
well, I can see it. I could see it very well.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really
so
beautiful.
are you American?
I am. I'm originally from Olympia, Washington.
Okay. So, I read something a couple of years ago on people that are, well, Ecuador inviting people and I guess incentivizing people, Americans, to come over there. Uh, like I guess 55 and older. I guess I'm in that group now.
Oh yes, they love their expats here. It's true.
Yeah, and they, I forget what they do. I think they give you a stipend. I want to say they give you like, I want to say it's like $1,000 or something. Uh,
I think you have to go through quite the process
yeah,
to
yeah,
do that, and they call it Ecuadorian purgatory because they do it in all. It's all paper. They don't have like a big, huge, massive computer system.
right.
So it's
Old
almost like
school.
you're in like the 1600s. It's cool.
Did you have to go through the process, or you just
I,
visiting?
I'm definitely permanent resident,
That's an
and
idea.
I've been here for a year. And holy cow, the place that I live in is a double eight vortex,
Yeah.
and it's called Vilcabamba. And I would say it's like the high heart of the earth. And just below us, a couple of hours in a little town called Valladolid, there's this waterfall, Todd, that is like 2,000 feet high.
Really?
And there is no source of water. The water coming down this waterfall is actually coming straight up from the deep in the earth.
Oh, it's coming
And
up, so it's like a
yeah,
spring. Okay.
yeah. And it's
Wow.
massive, this huge waterfall, right?
So,
And it's
yeah.
so cool. I call it the heart of the earth. It looks like an emerald out there. It's beautiful.
So, what's the weather like? I would. Is it the same year round?
Kind of. It's the same temperature, but there's microclimates because we're in the Andes.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's right now we're in rainy season when all the flowers bloom and everything's really green and pretty.
Right,
And then there's the dry season. It's still beautiful.
right.
Um, but yes, and the sun rises and sets at the same place and time every day, which makes it very weird if you're
Yeah,
from the north or the south.
I didn't know that. I mean, I'm sure I read that or was taught that at some point, but um, so when it's raining, does it rain all the time, or does it?
No, no, it comes in these bursts where I'm at. But I actually was led to this place over many, many years, and I ended up buying a sacred mountain, and I just bought it recently. And
Really?
then, yeah, and it was crazy because the talk you did with Julie, she was talking about all this influence, especially from the sun. Well, we just had this huge CME sort of blast in South America,
I
and
think that
just
was everywhere.
yeah,
Are you talking about this past weekend when
yeah,
everybody got their ass handed to them on a plane?
basically right. Well, we had a giant earthquake here, and it was like a
Really?
7.2, and my little house on this sacred mountain is in this valley. That's the only main valley in the Andes that goes east and west.
Hmm.
And so the sun rises and sets along the valley, and we were 60 miles out from this big, huge earthquake in this 100-year-old 3-room dirt floor Ecuadorian house, right?
Wow.
And it's got a tile roof. I mean, this thing's old, and it's a project. It's seriously like the funnest thing you've ever seen. It sounds rough, but it's the most beautiful place. And this thing just dances, and we're inside. And I've been in earthquakes before, and I'm like, "Ooh, this one's big. Ooh, hey, we should get out. Oh crap, come on!" But it was fine. It
Well,
didn't even move a mile.
I'm sure that house is,
It's
you
seen
know,
some
it's
things.
seen its share of everything. It just sounds like a magical place.
It's truly.
Yeah,
I love sharing about it.
sounds like a magical place. Well, welcome to the Soul Speaks 5D. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for
Thank you,
reaching
Todd.
out and coming in and honoring us with your presence, sharing space with us.
Thank you.
Very
Namaste.
cool. Stay to you. You know, that's pretty cool. So we can get back to Ecuador. I'd like to hear more about that. I'm one of the few people in the country that like to get the hell out of the USA, but
I'm giving
I'm
you warm vibes. I dressed in orange. I got like warmth. It's like 85 right now. I'm burning up.
Ecuador would be a cool place. I've always heard it was a very cool place.
It
Um,
is.
so how did this start for you? Did you wake up lit? Uh, did you
Yeah.
go to sleep because people told you were crazy, or you wanted to fit in and be normal, and uh, the eight
Yeah.
to
No.
five job and all that stuff? Did you have a reawakening experience?
No. I'm the oldest of 7, and I come from a Byzantine Catholic military family, all upper level military, and um, I my mom immediately knew I could see everything because I talked to her immediately about stuff that um, no one else knew about, or that none of the adults had said anything, or I'd tell her, we have to go do this. This must happen. And she knew I was perceiving the world in a different way. And I'm really grateful to my parents because they were very, very awake. And um,
Where was this, in Washington? I mean, in Oregon?
all over the world. I grew up in Germany.
Okay, so you
And,
were like, okay, I got you.
and
Military
when
brat.
Chernobyl blew, like I could see it, feel it, and I knew what was happening, even though I was 4. And it caused me to shut my heart down.
Really?
And yeah, but I can't shut my third eye. And so I had to just kind of try to navigate,
Now
and I got in so
you're
much
4 years
trouble.
old. You're 4 years old when this
Yeah,
happens, and
I'm 39. I just turned 39.
okay, and so you shut your heart down as a 4 year old. What did that consist of? I mean, were you like insensitive, or were you just not um, giving
No,
away?
I'm definitely compassionate.
Yeah, yeah,
I It was that I was avoiding even being in my body.
right, right.
And I was a C-section baby, and I tell people this is my umbilical cord. Like I was grounded here, and it was so deep and such a profound um, way of life. I had to learn very slowly and painfully how to be able to feel because I had such bad PTSD and from many many
And
things, including what I
this is
see.
from being a super empath.
I think I started out as a super empath, and I needed to go through the experience of the heart opening because that's exactly what we're doing.
True. Yeah, true.
So that was like this big, huge clearing. I think that was a big awakening for me, was to open my heart and not just be a seer and I'm an anthropologist.
Oh,
I got
wow.
I got my master's in anthro, and I am a futurist, and I do theory work and
Do
predictive
you ever
models.
are you familiar with Robert Sepper and Atlantean Gardens?
That sounds familiar.
Robert
I'm
Sepper, Sepher. He's
Oh
incredible.
yes.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's absolutely. I'm one of his biggest fans. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just noticing, how when I got into science, I was trying to make sure I wasn't crazy because I was really smart, but I really didn't do well with friendships, and because I
Yeah,
was moving all the time.
like a
Like,
social disorder almost.
yeah, um, and they held me back in school, but they also put me ahead in school, kind of stuff. Like they didn't know what to do with me. The best thing for me was homeschooling, actually.
Hmm.
And I was able to go ahead as fast as I wanted to. And I ended up with a college degree when I graduated high school. And that was cool, but that wasn't where I found my niche. That's not what I'm really good at. So,
I just want to kind of get a better picture. So from 4 to 18, you have, it sounds like almost like a more enhanced starseed experience. It sounds like you're obviously, like so many people that come on, a super empath, uh, that regulated that, uh, to to function, I guess, because you were like quote unquote out of the body. It sounds like though you were also very sensitive to Mother Earth, which I would imagine that from what you said about the Chernobyl incident, um,
Mhm.
I would imagine that was pretty impactful. Those types of things were pretty impactful to you. And now you're 39 and you just went through an earthquake and you were cool as a cucumber. So obviously you've had some evolution. But what I was trying to get at was like, so from 4 to 18, were you pretty much on your own? It sounds like you had great parents, great mother you could talk to. Um, a lot of people in that range of their experience that come on the show feel like they don't fit in. They feel abnormal, crazy, weird. Uh, did you have any type of connection with, let's just say, a face or faces of the universe, galactic, angelic, elemental, that guided you, for imaginary friends, that type of thing?
I love that question. That's such a good question. Yeah, um I was very lucky, especially as a teenager, and I was in high school when Columbine happened. Um and all my friends, we were all over it. We all were in the like Olympia rock scene at the time in the 90s, and we all played music, and they all knew I could see stuff and that I had a lot of experiences. I think, yes, I had 7 angels that would follow me around since I could remember. We went through this huge journey together up until I was about 30, and I realized that they had never asked me a single question, and I had asked them like a million questions my whole life, and they'd help me and save my ass so many times. And I said, I need to understand, what is your history? Why are you here? Why don't you ask me questions? So we spent about 6 months, and they just would tell me a little bit of their history every day. And I began to understand that, and they helped me remember what my trajectory is, why I'm here, why I seem to, as a kid, just like know everything, and why I seem to almost be like a library of sorts,
Hmm.
where people can open up a subject and I can illuminate it. That's sort of the skill I would call it. I'm now a super psychic who is really good at feeling. I love the empaths because I understand this incredible level of suffering they go through with a superpower that they've never been taught about.
Right.
Um, but I did wake up to understand that I'm a Lyran and that I helped to create DNA, that I have this big stake in the long trajectory of this galaxy, and that as a human, studying humans, that I wanted to bring in a whole other element, from both directions, the quantum and the galactic, and look at all of our trajectory in a much deeper and more multidimensional way,
Hmm.
and bring in this anthropological scientific knowledge about what it's like and what it means to be human, and from the ground up, from like the microbiology up and the galactic down, or maybe the universal at this point is what's coming online now as we enter into that gateway Julie was talking about, this midway that we're
Yeah,
just
we're in the middle of that
days
one,
away.
by the way, that she was talking about.
Yeah.
It's been pretty, and I don't want to stop you. I want to slow you down because you said some really interesting things that nobody's ever said on this show. So, first of all, you want to bring. Well, let me ask you this first before we get into that. These 7 angels, were they, because I'm really intrigued and curious about those aspects, as I refer to them, of us that visit us.
Yeah.
And it's just me. It's a chicken and the egg. Is it me, or is that me I'm looking at, or is that something outside of me? But I know everything's one, and so on. So I guess
Right.
at some level, it's a moot question. But so you talk to them. Uh, they told you their background and story, obviously there must be some type of connection or lineage from them to you. Can you tell us, were they Lyran? Did they have the same type of uh, objective that you have here, beyond just supporting you? I mean, do they have like a vested interest too?
Ooh, I like that. Cool, interesting crossover idea. Um, no, they, as far as I can tell, this particular race, and I love interacting with all these different thousands of different races of beings. This particular race comes from this is like my understanding of it.
Yeah.
And it's just my little facet of the universal knowledge, I suppose. But this is the seventh dimension, and it's a very specific energetic wavelength, that is that I think it takes a lot of effort for them to actually be involved. Um, but they seem to have sort of ignited one another into this hierarchy, and are have such a long trajectory of living that, in my estimation, from just what I gather from dealing with the demonic and the angelic, that they tend to stay in that particular dimension for extremely long periods of time from our vantage point.
Right.
Um, the Lyrans were fifth dimensional, and then they got really sick and tired of losing all their knowledge whenever, even though they had a million year long lifetimes. I think this is kind of a common multidimensional being problem. Um, that they When one of them would go back home to source for a vacation before they'd incarnate to something else, they lose a million years of knowledge. And
Would that be like a memory swipe like we had?
yeah, like a big memory swipe. And the Lyrans are like massive nerdy librarians,
Hmm.
and that'd be like losing a wing of the library.
Right.
And it was just this incredible heartache. In fact, I was there when the Library of Alexandria burned down twice. And remember how that feels to watch a portion of wisdom and knowledge disappear back home to source, um, and not have access to it again. A level of sort of understanding death, to like this constant fear of annihilation of wisdom
Hmm.
is there. It weighs on my mind, um, and it's something I'm processing emotionally and healing from, actually. But
Sure.
I
Yeah.
I think that we all are. We're remembering. The remembering piece to me seems like the name of the game on the other side of this midway, this sort of liminal
Yeah.
in between space that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about, and I think that's one of the reasons, um, I'm pretty cloudy today. I'm not off planet, but this is a pretty important period we're in right now. And I was trying to put some words together, that basically said, um, that self-expression in any and all aspects, that's raw and true and real and authentic and transparent, um, in any aspect of our life, be it art or communication or whatever, is a real game changer. And like what you're saying about remembering, I guess that would be the same thing, because I see it as when one of us does that from an aligned state with our best intentions, without self judgment and just, past the point of embarrassment, that what happens is there's code in there. There's code in there that's not like the typical 3D verbalized, comprehension type of scenario. It's just carrying light basically. And so I can understand what you're saying, and to a degree what you're feeling. It sounds like that's a big part of your lineage as well. um, these these seven, sounds like, or would it be semi accurate to say that in the realms where most of us don't have the utmost clarity, that they've connected with you over the years or the eons or whatever. They're collaborators.
Yeah,
They're they're collaborators rather than, let's say, soul family.
I'd agree. And I'm, in a way, I merged with the angelic. And I loved how you have talked about merger. I find it to be actually the highest mystical art, to merge with something, to merge with a dimension like that, even, or a frequency, or a feeling, or a trauma.
Mm,
Um, and then you become more expanded in that universal awareness. And since then, I've endeavored to continue to keep merging with these dimensions of consciousness. Um, and in this year, because I've set myself up with a really good teacher, which I think is really important. And you named one for you. I love that. I'm going to go look them up. Um, and then, of course, set yourself up with the right place and the right timing. And we do this. I mean, right now is literally the right place, time. That's what we're that's where we're at the moment. And
right,
there's no wrong place or time, but
right,
to be really present in it. That's where all the action is, right? So, uh, then we are able to dig in to this juicy stuff, and I'm finding myself also discombobulated. I just did this really neat session with a friend of mine earlier today, and I was helping her look at some past life memories. And the when we got on the call, we're both like, "Yeah, wow, what do we even say right now?" There's all these cross waves of
right.
energy from both sides of this middle way we're in at the moment. And I like the word liminal space. That's an anthropology word. It's the space between spaces. And all these different cultures have created doorways to nowhere. There's tons here in South America. The Vikings even did doorways to nowhere. And it's because when you walk through this a doorway, you're never going to walk through a doorway the same again now. When you walk through a doorway, you know how you'll go to the kitchen and be like, "Why the hell am I here?" It
All the
actually
time.
it resets your brain.
Yeah.
This is why they'd use doorways to nowhere, because it literally would reset you. And um, this is where we're at. This is what we're getting a reset, like Julie said, an electromagnetic reset, a timeline, a story reset, a remembrance reset, a DNA reset, uh, any reset you want. Hey, it's your book. You are reading the book of you in the library, my friends.
Right on.
And I just had this realization that there's a window in the library. And I'm like, ooh, I've never seen a window in the library, as I'm looking at my own book, which this is this merging with different dimensions. For me, this is how I experience it. And I'm in this weird part of the library where I find myself reading my own book. And then I'm like, wow, there's a window. And at first I noticed how often I flip back in the book. I'm like, ooh, that was a juicy memory. But that's a lot of energy to flip back in the book. And they're like, what's out the window? So now that's where I'm at this moment, this liminal space, before I really get to know what's out the window, before I've been finished flipping through the book, right? It's a cool, weird metaphor that works personally and
No,
and
I
and
like it.
reader.
I can get it with the what you said about South America. Like, just because you're right. There's some deep stuff out there, and a lot of it's untouched. And it's still got a mystical, certainly esoteric aspect to it. But like, it's almost like what you describe as what these doorways to nowhere. Before you said that, I was thinking, oh, she's right. Metaphorically, you travel around and you follow this particular culture or that particular culture, and you go into the depths of it, and then at the end, at the endless end of it, you find yourself in this void,
Yeah.
and that's what I got from you. And then you called it doorway to nowhere. But so like you go in and learn something, then you, I want to say, hit a ceiling or a wall.
Yeah.
And but that's, so you find yourself back in the mother's womb, back
Yes.
in the
Oh,
womb of creation, right?
ooh, I like that.
Yep.
Yes. Because then you get to remake yourself.
Yeah.
And I try to use these times to drop more identity. Um, and I have so much to drop. Jeez, it's amazing. But I try to hang out in this liminal space and sort of get myself undressed emotionally, spiritually, physically, reassess my stuff. And I like to be really transparent. Like in this time, I'm reassessing my relationship with alcohol.
Hmm.
And I'm reassessing my relationship with the earth because I'm such a galactic minded person. But this land that I bought, it bought me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's owning me, folks. I have never experienced anything like this. So it's new, and I'm like, ooh, I am now a farmer. I am not like I'm not what I thought I was. Okay, great. Um, so I'm using this to like undress myself to recapitulate what I've learned over this past huge swath of time that we're realizing is way older on the record than we ever imagined. We're looking much more like at 1 million years of Homo sapien,
Oh yeah.
not half a million.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's this, but this is actually, to honestly, I think this is bigger than that. I think we're going through what we might call a punctuated equilibrium. And Stephen Jay Gould was this esoteric biologist. That's the best way I could describe him. And he came up with this term called punctuated equilibrium, where he said evolution doesn't happen in like slowly over time. It happens in these big bursts because it has to. And we're at that moment. We're on a threshold, I believe, that we've been told about. And as a remote viewer, too, I like to try to understand all these different ways that reality is working at different layers of reality. So, like quantum physics, molecular biology, all the way out to galactic physics. And when I'm looking at the patterns that are rising, where we're at, and like a lot of your listeners and your folks know, we're in an alignment, but the alignment is actually way farther out physically than
Yeah.
people realize.
Yeah.
We're moving through a place in space that is there's like, okay, our galaxy is moving through this huge cloud. You can look this stuff up. It's really neat, and this cloud of matter, but there's a gap in this cloud and we're moving through it,
Right.
which means we're getting bombarded by stuff that our galaxy has never ever seen before either.
Mm.
And to me, this is what the CIA remote viewers always were looking at, this big burst of light, and they could never get past it. And they always attributed it to like a solar flare, which I think is totally definitely on the books. But at the same time, they weren't realizing it's internal, that we're looking at a DNA shift. They can't see past it because we change into a different species.
Mm.
How could they see with Homo sapien eyes what a Homo luminous is going to see?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I think we're at now.
That's
So I'm like
interesting.
kind of starstruck about it.
Well, I mean, yeah. Let's start with the many know that certain things have happened. Let's just say in the energetic field that haven't materialized. I think that's part of what you were saying. Like the
Yeah.
alignment is coming in the physical part of this journey is a little bit, but it seems to be moving closer to the point of conception. It's like speeding up. I like the description of what you explain about the burst of light, because to me uh, that again kind of exemplifies the birth, or maybe
Oh,
even
yeah.
the conception, right? the orgasm, the cosmic orgasm or something. Like it's kind of like there's always going to be that piece, like you were talking about those remote viewers. Like you get 90% of it is what I used to hear when I first rewoke. You're never going to get the other 10. The other 10's on you. Which once I got further down the line and I learned a little bit more about quantum, you know, that type of thing, quantum science. Then I go back to like what you said earlier, which I thought was kind of interesting. And so you said you came here and you were coming from two directions. One was, I think, galactic, and the other one was quantum.
Yeah.
That's what you said? Could you
Yes.
explain that? Could you explain what you mean by that?
Yes. So it kind of comes from this this lifetime for sure. Like, but I also remember very much having this experience in other lives where I wanted to understand the building blocks of reality from all the different various sort of physical levels that we can look at in the third dimension. However, that being said, um, we are 12 dimensional beings. We have access to all 12 dimensions. We always have. They didn't go anywhere. We're moving a lot of garbage out of the way, like genetic trauma and stuff, to be able
Mm.
to actually remember this fact. And people are doing such a great job, by the way. I'm just so amazed at how fast people are moving and grooving on that stuff. Um, so that this is kind of just how I see the universe, really, because um, I'd I'd look at like a here's my cup of horchata tea, which is popular in South America, and this cup has electrons that have memory, and I can see that memory. Um, and so for me, I'm like, wow, I'd get lost in an object or a place as a kid because I didn't have a whole lot of friends. So I'd end up reading books or looking at stuff and using my psychic abilities all the time. It was highly entertaining, actually. Talking to angels all the time, and I was never bored. But then I started to ask questions. Well, hang on a minute. Like, I can psychically see that my hands are made of cells that are really intelligent, and they're somehow agreeing to hanging out with me and making me look this way, apparently. And I just had to learn from the ground up what consciousness is. And then it expanded. It's because I'm talking to these beings that aren't even from the planet. And I'm like, hey, mom, angels are aliens. And she's like, don't tell anybody that. And I'm like, seriously? But they're not from Earth. And that's what an alien is. And is like this huge, like, why are we talking about this? And then, of course, now aliens are one of the top subjects at the dinner table with my family. Um, but the that expanded out to a whoa, we're definitely not alone. What am I really looking at? And then feeling more and more comfortable reaching out into levels of reality that everyone was like, why do you care so much about the planets and the sun? Or, electromagnetic plasma physics.
So there's the quantum,
Yeah,
the connectivity. Yeah,
connects it all. And then to be able to zoom in and out
yeah.
and to push your remote viewing abilities, all of you, if you can imagine anything, you can remote view. That is the psychic ability, helping people reclaim imagination. Um, but pushing it farther and farther, and finding your fear. Oh, that's been the biggest piece, to bring all this together, to find the void and be willing to jump in and go chase your fear until it got very clear how reality works. um, or at least the way that I am able to see it from my vantage point.
No,
So,
I'm with you on that. I mean, it's we all say things differently, but I'm totally getting what you're saying. You brought up the merging. You mentioned angelic. and you mentioned demonic. We can call that a lot of different things, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's just the same species having
yeah,
a big,
yeah.
big, huge tiff.
And so my question to you is, I got so many questions for you, but in terms of let's just say the merging, and then you've got one polarity or one extreme, and then the opposite, whatever
Mm,
we label those.
yeah.
I've always kind of felt that we can't divorce ourselves from any part of the universe. It's all us.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've had my own journey with dark and light, and found balance back in 2016, and continue to work on that as you do everything. But I was curious with somebody like you, what are your, do you merge with things that you're not quite um, identifying with?
Yeah.
Do you only merge with the light? You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, because
Yeah.
that's been a really big, um, I guess, expansion component for me. Peace, balance has always been to embrace those things which I don't feel I am at one. I didn't feel I was, right. I mean, it's kind of what you're talking about too, like going into these places where you don't know what's there. Uh,
Mhm.
like looking out, going out that window. So I think that's really something that I feel could be a useful topic, conversation in the world, is being open enough to take in both sides and not just giving it lip service. Because I also pick up from you that what we're all talking about and what we're all doing, and I agree with you as well, that people have done an incredible job, far better than I have. I think I've done a good job, but there's a lot more people awake than we might think.
Yeah.
But there's still this attachment to all the narratives that are at this very superficial human level. And to me, the way to blow past that is to bring everyone in under the same tent, basically. So
Mhm.
it's nice to hear someone with your background and your experience say, "I merge with dark and I merge with light." If you want to be,
If
in a
you want
simple
to
term.
go for the gold, if you want to go for the ultimate experiences of consciousness, you have to merge with darkness. But here's the cool secret about it. And um and I want to be blunt and say I've had the levels of darkness that most people wouldn't want to look at. I've gone there. And I've gone past that rabbit hole, and I've I've practiced what I preach, which is I'm there to dissolve the darkness, because all the reason it's dark is because it's dense. It's actually made of light.
Mhm.
And when you go to the very depths of it and you're willing to merge with that peak separation frequency, and that's, you named it, it's, that's not me. I am not that kind of abuse. I am not narcissism. I am not that depth of evil. I These are things that I abhor, that I can't imagine, ever doing blank or whatever, or to the point where uh, I've been able to go all the way and come out the other end, and talk to people about, hey, all that is this peak separation frequency. There's a lot to learn from it when you're willing to go into it and actually fully merge with it until the point where you don't have any reaction to it anymore.
Mhm.
Now you fully understood it. There's a level of expansiveness that you would not believe. It is like uh, it's like a supernova of consciousness. And then it takes you to a whole other level or another dimension of consciousness. Um, and eventually I got to this point where I'd done it enough, and I'd also go into that peak attachment experience, or that peak oneness experience that you're talking about is like superficial, and I'm like, well, I'm really attached to this,
Mhm.
or or my idea of happiness is like really screwy because I keep attaching it to things that are going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or
and
can go away.
yeah, and then dissolving that attachment, which is very painful. Equally painful is just hanging out in something horrible and awful, that you thought you couldn't handle, right? So I keep telling people, if you want to go higher, faster, follow your fear. There's that little road that says
Get
fear, your greatest fear, right there. It's a shitty little road. It's short and hard, but if you do it, you're going to end up way higher than going round and round and round in your cycle until you finally decide to take the road. Because you have to. You'll end up finding that fear again and again anyway. So once that happens, at one point I entered into this mindset where I could see all these frequencies and they look like this big circle. It was like a circular room or like a circular library, and everything I see seems to be in terms of like collections of frequencies and knowledge. But in this case, the circular room, there was no way to know what was better or worse in this room. Like there wasn't anything elevated to a better place. And in one area is all these peak separation frequencies where they're horrible, just name it, whatever you can think of, the darkest thing. And then over here is all these peak oneness frequencies that are amazing, and you don't want to leave them, and you kind of just get stuck there and you never learn anything. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. It's like a big wheel of samsara. And people just go through and they just start choosing all this stuff and they're
Mhm.
learning. But what is the library made of? And then I realized as I stood in the middle of the library, it's love.
Yeah.
There is no opposite to love. This is unconditional love. And the statement that came, this beautiful statement from the source field, right? Because it exists, it is loved.
Yeah.
Name
This
it, the worst
yeah,
thing.
I
Because it
agree.
exists, it
Like
is loved in the
people
universe because of
people
its
talk
wisdom.
about AI,
Yeah.
like it's some kind of it's not God's substance. I mean, everything is the same substance. I mean, you're calling it love. I mean, I think that's a great word for it. I mean, there is no word for it, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
it's
the source. Yeah. The
um
source of things.
but yeah, I that whole thing with the circles too. I mean, it's like each one of them is a portal or a module. It's like
Yes.
the more you experience, the more uh, you evolve. And then the thing about, I guess that metaphorically speaking, that point where you get to where you sit in your chair and you put your feet on the table and you put your arms back, and I finally made it. That only comes when we return to source for the vacation that you were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this
Love
is
that.
something that I love doing these shows because of the way they just, Morgan's for a long time would tell me, we give dates out, we try to field everybody and put the dates out. They pick them and they all, it just flows.
It
And
does, isn't it neat?
this is happening now because what's been on my mind has been, you know, I realize that we're going through something and it's an honor and a privilege to be here. And there are no limits. I went to bed last night, the mantra for 100 times I said, I can teleport
Mhm.
physically. I can physically teleport to any place on this earth. And I said that 100 times last night. And so my point is, what are we doing sitting on our heels, waiting for whatever? Why
Right.
aren't we creating in little ways and in big ways? Because that seems to be in our blood. It seems to be about movement, about creation, about going through that, what did you call it? The doors that go,
Yeah, the liminal space, the
yeah,
doorways to nowhere.
it's like when you think you're getting somewhere or you get to that other side you're talking about, uh, you find yourself in the holy darkness of the universal mother's womb, but how do you get there, and how do you get out of there? You create.
Yes.
And that's what I'm really focused on right now. I'm going, how do we do this? How do we do this? You know, you mentioned about being in the body.
Yeah.
um, I'm curious to know with you, how much do you feel you're in the body? Or because, like you said, you spend, a lot of people do. You know, I'm out there in the
Yes.
ethers and such, but how much do you feel you're in the body as a human, and how important or not do you feel that is to our trip?
I think it's 100% important. And I spent and worked my butt off to get in my body. I have a very rare genetic disease that causes me a lot of pain,
Hmm.
and it grows. This pain gets bigger. And I had this interesting experience because this will help people who literally they can't get in their body because it hurts, and that's like the bulk of humans at the moment. But I was guided to do this Native American journey and be led on a journey and actually let somebody work on me for a change. That's a paradigm shift. um, and I went on this journey, and my friend, she said, there's this healer from Lemuria named Avatala, and he's this crystal master, and he knows you. And he's like, will you freaking send her down here, please? And I need to talk to her. So I do this journey, and I meet Avatal, and I remember him somehow. I can barely even tell exactly how, but it was like seeing an old buddy.
Hmm.
And he's like, lay down on my thing, get your butt over there. And he's like, all right, what's the deal? And he's looking at me, and he thinks it's so funny that I've forgotten who I am. And he's like, what's the deal? This is all very psychically real. It's happening, very, very physically. I'm having I can smell it, taste it, touch it. And I said, well, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and that means my collagen blueprint is messed up. I don't have any structure in my body. I literally dislocate joints all the time. I have to pop my fingers back in regularly all the time. I'll roll over in bed and dislocate my shoulder.
Good
It
gosh.
gets worse and worse. And he looks at me and he's like, I knew it. I knew you were gonna. It was like he had a bet with me. And he's like, I knew you were gonna forget why you picked this body.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh crap. Whoa, okay, fine. You win. You win the bet. I forgot. So tell me. And he says, Elizabeth, you already did half the job. You figured out how to turn your pain into light. So let me tell all of
Hmm.
you how to do that, right? That's half the job. How do you turn your pain into light? That's that's what we have to do right now to get to this other side of this homo luminous thing, this idea
Turn
of
the
becoming
pain into
something
light.
new. Yes.
Turn
And
the
it's
suffering into light. Turn the stories
exactly
into light. Yeah. I
how,
get it.
how. All you have to do is feel it, friend. If you can feel it, it creates light. There's physics in electrons that are dumping photons out constantly, and every frequency does it at different rates, but it's all doing it. And
Mm.
pain is a frequency. And so if you just feel into it, go into it, look at it, know it, whatever your thing is, go in and sit in it and hang out, and don't try to dull it. Don't go away from it. Notice really what it's made of, and you'll see and feel and know the same thing. It's all light, it's just compressed. It's the
Mm.
same around darkness. And physical pain is the same. Mental, emotional pain is the same. It's all light. So now I've convinced my brain, because then you have to go up and you have to convince your mental. And I'm very mental. So I'd repeat, pain is light, pain is light, pain is light, pain is light, until now my subconscious is like riddled with pain is light. I just, bombarded my subconscious with it. Kind of like I can transport, I can do
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
I can
No,
do this. I know I can. It's part of my lineage.
yeah.
Um, and so that's how I did it, and it's
No,
worked.
I like that. And I'll tell you why in this moment, because I think I'm just sharing this, just as we do every day, but it's not about me. I'm just sharing the experience or whatever is coming to me as a result of interacting with you. Um, I have put the mental in a subordinate role.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there's a part of me that's saying, hey, you should know better because everything, it's not built that way.
Yeah.
You're emotional, you're mental, you're physical, you're spiritual. I get this, but um, when we when we engage the intuitive and the telepathic, and that certainly is on the rise for everyone. The mental is important, I think, because that can work against us because of the beliefs, no pun intended, that the mental has. So I think just the fact that I had no intention of mentioning the mantra that I used last night, but it makes sense to me because that's still a part of us. It's an equal part of us. It's at the human monadic table, and so I want to thank you for because I would have never thought someone like you would have even regarded the mental. But
Actually, I include it as equal to the three. I just see them as the three brains. And if you look at an ant doesn't discriminate that its head, abdomen, and heart are, it doesn't judge these things. And we have a brain, a heart, and a gut that are actually brains, and they have very, very different capacities. And but I relate to what you're saying because as an academic, I didn't realize that until later when I was reclaiming my body and
mhm,
getting in cell by cell. But doing this, hey, brain, wow, what are you really good at? You're good at logic. You're good at that subconscious stuff. You're good at transactions. You're good at programming and organization and connections, but you're terrible at memory. Um, like the heart is actually the seat of all your memory, and that the heart doesn't regenerate. It remembers everything since the very moment it began to beat. And that's where all your memory is. That's why when we react to stuff, we'll have these real weird memories that'll show up because the heart field gets hit first. So if somebody says something mean, you feel that hit first.
okay,
Um, and because of the heart field, and then your brain reacts, but it's already brought up all these strange different things that were all somehow related to the feeling that you were getting, whether it be separation or oneness frequencies you're getting. Um, and that's kind of that second half of the job
mm,
is that formlessness where you become so formless that stuff will zoom through, and I like jokingly say it's just like a stinky fart. It moves through, and then you're like, yep, up there it was. There was that, asshole statement that just passed right
oh,
through.
that's funny.
Um, it,
Uh, so
I'm
do
kind of
you?
silly like that, but yes.
No, I love it. This is great. This is real. It's what I was getting this morning about, trying to write, and I'm just trying to put words out, but
Yeah.
like that's what I was talking about, the self-expression when it's real, when the human, when the human, is fully engaged without any pretension, just
That's what I was loving about you and who you are. I think your beautiful soul family here who orbits you, your energetic, your wide heart field, this divine masculine, heart centered. Man, I've just been so in love, so deeply amazed at the masculine right now.
mm,
I used to work with vets and I did vocational rehab for Marines.
mm,
And I did a lot of stuff in the military and um, for the military. I was never in it, but I grew up in it. And I lost so many friends and family members, what I would call friend family to war and devastation and the 20 years of constant war we've been in. And nearly have lost my own actual siblings because of these things. So the that level of healing that the men are going through, I see them waking up out of this and being fed up with an existential starvation that they've gone through and saying, "No, I'm not cannon fodder. I'm not an endless slave worker. I'm not what you're telling me that I am. I am responsible. I am trustworthy. I am strong. I
Yeah.
am benevolent. I
Yeah.
am the solar. I am the embodiment of the nurtured masculine from Gaia, and the humble men like you who stand in this place and offer their field, this strong heart field to be able to move forward and connect us to the real internet, this sort of Indra's net, I like to call it. But this is the that when you are having these normal conversations with very odd and amazing and intelligent and beautiful people, then suddenly, wow, hey, guess what, you're not so weird, folks. Like, weird is like now super awesome, cool, like Northwest America, weird, keep Portland weird.
Keep
uh,
Austin weird.
yeah,
It's spreading everywhere.
exactly, yes, Texas.
Um, yeah, there is obviously there's been a lot of masculine breakout and discomfort, the highs, the lows, and all that. But you're seeing a lot of brothers step up right now. It's very promising. It's very encouraging, and it's also very contagious, I believe. I want to ask you, do you is there a line of distinction for you as a science? I mean, I consider you like a scientist, anthropologist. You certainly got a scientific mind. Between the brain and the mind, or is the brain like a part of the car?
I love that. Actually, I do think of it like a part of the car, because we know how plastic the brain really is. And you can take a lot of chunks out of somebody's brain, and they can still have an amazing, miraculous life. So we know that the brain is not the seat of the soul. And that's where I think the mind comes from,
Yeah.
because I was able to heal myself of PTSD. And I'm still working on the vagus nerve because I have found that my body will still go into fight or flight randomly, but it's not anything like it used to be. And I healed it because I did it on my own. I had to go to 14 different therapists. Nobody helped, literally 14 different people, because I'm wired different than most folks. So it was very weird to work with me. And I was like, I can't do any medication. I know, you're saying it will help, but it won't. I'm not wired like normal people. Um, and so I had to really use my mind to heal my brain and figure out weird back ways to do it, and discovered some of these sort of secrets, like the doors to nowhere. Or you don't need a door to do it, you can do it in your own mind. Or I would command my mind, I'd call it a heart or mind command. So I'd have these weird self-hate thoughts come in, and I'd say, excuse me, I really appreciate your help. Thank you. It was gratitude that would stop it in its tracks, because the brain's like, wait a minute, she didn't react normally.
Right.
She's thanking us for telling her she's ugly.
I got you.
And
So
then it does.
the
Oh,
strategist, so the strategist of you is you're saying is the mind,
yes.
uh, because it's really kind of transparent to the brain.
Yeah.
So I love the backdoor connotation. The kind of like, uh, and I know we all kind of do that. It's not like planting seeds, kind of. But you know what I mean. But
Yes.
yeah, that's a good description. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, you gotta just tell it, thank you. I really appreciate this. I am the soul in charge. And I did repeat that. I'm the soul in charge. I have a different plan. I'm not going to do this whole suicide thing. I have a different plan, and this is my plan. And then I'd breathe, because that deep breath tells that vagus nerve that what you're doing is you. That's the real mind, the actual soul saying what needs to be said to take back the body. Um,
The
and I was
voice
able
of
to reclaim my mind and have a quiet mind. I cried the first day I had a quiet mind. I cried my heart out because I never believed it could happen, and it did.
far out. The voice is the soul. I mean, there's many voices, I
The
guess.
witness. Yeah, the
Yeah, but,
witness.
but it's the voice too. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it is. I mean, because I know like as a kid, there's always been this voice. I like what you said. I
Yes.
am the voice of the soul. This is I run the show.
Yeah. I run
And
the show,
I,
man.
t-
This is
I tell
my
you,
book.
another thing that I've gone back and forth with,
Yeah.
and I'll just share this. And again, I don't even know why. I feel like today is. I woke up today just going. I felt something drastically just
Oh,
shift, and I
me
know
too.
this has been going. Did you really?
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I always, and this is not without instruction or even explanation or verbalization. This was just my own knowing that I've always been my soul, like from
Mhm.
day one. And to me, soul, higher self, same thing. That's just me.
Yes.
Right? I'm
Yeah,
not.
I agree. I
I'm
agree.
not, I'm just going to say that's the same thing.
Yeah.
I am soul, right? So as I reawoke, so to speak, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and started to engage other people, because I went into the hermit thing too, like everybody did, and I started to go out into the world. Slowly, I met Morgan. I started having that uh, dynamic, huge dynamic, the remembrance and all the stuff that goes with that. So that's a very impactful, almost like it's part of me, I guess is. And I started to go through the process of checking myself. How do you know what you know? Da, 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 da. And giving up that I knew anything, and even to the point where it was probably damaging at times. And this is probably something similar that we all do. But
Mm.
now that I've come around, I'm going, you know, a lot of that was bullshit, and I
Mm.
guess it was necessary bullshit, but I'm right back where I started. What I knew then as a 3-year old, as a 5-year old, as a 6-year, that thing is still here.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, what are your thoughts? And again, there's no right or wrong. I'm just
Right.
trying to
None. Right.
learn that my higher self is me. I am my
Yeah.
soul. And the only time that I'm not, that's when I'm out of my body. Okay. Like
Right.
which is crazy because if I reach up here for my soul or my higher self, I'm actually right here. Where are you going? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. This is just me, and I'm not saying this is the way people should do things. Everybody's different. But what are your thoughts on are we are we at a distance from our higher self? Or is it
Yeah.
us? Is this not my voice? I can own this voice if I believe this voice is me.
Um,
I mean, I know it's a tricky kind of ambiguous kind of thing, but I'm just curious what you think.
I actually love this question because I ponder this a lot, and I'm in agreement with Thomas Aquinas on this one. And Thomas Aquinas said that a plant looks like a plant because it has the soul of that plant. The matter organizes around the consciousness, the soul of that plant.
Got you.
He described all living things as having a soul, and now we know that actually all electrons themselves actually have a consciousness. We might call that panpsychism. Um, but the it's kind of like a mirror image of the usual, like my soul animates my body. Well, yes, um, but it's much more than that. Your body's being destroyed and made many trillion times a second, and there's a constant agreement that all these little cells and electrons are going to be you. And this is why when people do a lot of inner work, they physically change and they actually look different.
Hmm.
And like I looked at some of your really early videos and like your videos now, and you look different, you look more light. It's very obvious that you are more and more and more deeper into the real universal experience.
Even if
Um,
your hair's falling out and turning white.
yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, it,
Uh,
it's actually funny because I people do say I look younger even though I'm getting more and more gray.
hmm,
And I think you look deeply youthful. Um, that's that inner work that journey of self-inquiry that the soul goes on. So there's like, the arising from source,
hmm,
and that's done through love because your vantage point is loved very deeply, infinitely, and it's dressed as an essence. And that essence, like in my case, I would say my essence is simply luminosity. That's the other half of the job that Avatala said that I'm here to do. I'm in a very formless body on purpose. It doesn't have any structure, and I'm a female. So I'm doubly more formless than normal people because I'm here to be light. I'm here to literally turn pain into light, and more than that, just continue to be nothing but light, just to be luminous, to illuminate whatever shows up. um, and that voice, this is the voice of the soul of that essence, and the memory of who I am and what I am and why I've made these choices. And as we arise, we come in and we move through all these dimensions. Half of them have duality,
hmm.
half of them don't. And you're going through as a learning to bring forth an understanding of the universe as you. And then this back and forth play happens. So I'm speaking to Todd, even though Todd technically is me, because we're all source and we're all one, and there's no we in the end. It's only the I am presence, and then that backs up into the lack of I am presence, which is the void, the light without source. And I can psychically see it. And it's actually my favorite place to meditate is the void. There's light there, but there's no source to it.
Hmm.
Um, and you can go into the middle of a black hole, remote view into the middle of a black hole, and you'll have a very similar experience where it just all stops. And there's weird stuff there because all the matter's different. Um,
So when you're in that void of the black hole, that light that you're talking about that doesn't have a source,
that's the soul, I
I get
suppose.
it because it's like it happens to me a lot when I connect.
Yeah.
I always wonder where the hell is this fucking light coming
Yeah,
from,
right?
right? And I thought, well, maybe it's an optical thing, but I
Yeah,
always
no,
knew,
it's
but I
not.
knew it was real because it gets really bright sometimes. And
Yeah.
but if I try to look at it, it's gone. I can't find it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
I totally
So
do, and it's
that's what
so
you're
weird.
talking about. Okay. So
It's
I thought maybe that was something that I was, because we're always like as humans we're going, oh, did I really think that? Did I really did
exactly, and
that
it
really
turns
happen?
out there's, like,
But yeah, that's
10,000 people.
what I got to say. I can validate that because I've seen it. I know Morgan.
Yes.
When we've connected, we've both seen it. I mean, it's uh, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I
It's
getting
so
back to
cool.
this thing about I'm trying to get, because I guess we're merging so many things
Yeah,
in this series of incarnations on Earth,
yeah,
and one of them is, I think, the logical and the creative, or the left and the right brain, or however you want to put it,
yeah,
or the masculine, feminine. But there's something to, we don't have to know everything. I get that. You can feel your way, but there's something about connecting the dots that, I don't know, maybe that's just something that I came here to work out for myself. But this thing about the higher self, the soul voice, I'll call it that. There are times I have tried and tried and tried, and I look out there, or this is metaphoric, but it never leaves me. I'm just going, this is silly. I am my higher self, like, so if but there's also these, I guess we would call them, these false identities that are still real and part of me, and certainly the bodies, the mental speaks one way, the physical speaks another way, the ego's there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's but I do you feel like that part of what's happening to us, because it seems like part of what's because I think there's a lot of programming in light worker
Mm-hmm.
circles, in
Yeah.
starseed circles. There's a lot of programming. There's a lot of agenda behind the transmissions that people receive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And sovereignty is sovereignty. I can think for myself. That's my higher self speaking. Okay. That's my
Yes.
soul speaking.
Ooh, I
But
like what you're saying.
do you feel that this is not a leading question because I don't have an opinion. Do you feel that that it's an integral element of what we're here to do is to fully bring in this voice as the commander of the troops, of the commander of the physical human monad, something like that?
Yeah, man. Man, I love how you are so connected because I was literally going to talk about the commanders.
Hmm. The
um,
commanders.
yes, and that there's this awakening of the commander self happening. Um, yes, I think that that's true, but I stopped seeing like the false identities as false and extremely freaking fascinating.
Yeah, I
'Cause
left that part
holy
out.
cow, man.
I
Yeah.
wasn't going to say extremely fascinating, but to treat them
Yeah.
just like
With
everything
so
else,
much
you treat
honor.
them as it's me. Okay,
Yes,
it's
like,
me.
thank you so much for
Right,
trying
right.
to help me, ego. Oh, wow, I can't believe how much effort I put into this perfection of this
Mm,
crazy problem that I just solved, and now I've had this breakthrough. I can't believe that. But here is this I wanna give everybody a back door, another back door here.
okay.
Back into it. When we tend to march forward, we have these our eyes are forward facing because of our ancient ability to be predators. But the fact is that in order to actually get home, you have to call off the search first. Then you have to back into it. You have to fall backwards into it. It's tricky. It's literally like a psychic exercise. Fall backwards into the next dimension. When you think that you can't get farther and you're not really sure where to go from here, then fall back. Fall back
Mm,
off the cliff. And you'll find that you're in a free fall for a little while and you'll be afraid and your consciousness will fight you and you won't be able to meditate and you can't sleep and you feel terrible and your body's going crazy and all this stuff. There's a
that's
lot
how
of
I feel right now.
yeah.
There's
And
144 people in the house as she's speaking. By the way, at 100 at a hour and 14 minutes. You can't make
oh,
this
it's
shit up.
super cool. Yeah, I love it. Bruce says you never left. Correct. And so fall back onto your couch. And there's that brief period of time where you're falling backwards and you're like, I may just keep falling forever. There may be nothing to catch me. But you'll find that you get held and you get used to it. And then you're not falling anymore. And there's this new presence. And then you start to see more. Then you kind of get used to the new light, um, and you find your next clear voice. The next layer of trauma shifts. The polarity that you were just grappling with
Mm,
collapses, or
mm,
in your case or ours, who's on this call, there's like a couple of hundred polarities at the moment that are collapsing, which is why we feel disoriented. But use that little weird liminal space while you're falling to undress whatever it is that you're done learning from with gratitude and just pure love, and give it and say, you existed, this version of me that at first I would thought it was false, but it's actually not false. It's simply a beautiful temporal version of me. I thank you so much because you were the stepping stone who got me to this point where I can free fall into another expansiveness. and then the voice changes, and you find new words, and you get these downloads, you get the true activations, and the true activations are in you. There are I never use the word activation for that reason, because I can't activate anybody. All I can do is help them remember who they are. But that's the shift from dependency to empowerment and sovereignty that you named. That word
I
sovereign.
I I really want to make clear what she just said to everybody, because I think that's very golden. Nobody can activate anybody. You can only help them remember. This is one thing I always loved about Morgan when I met Morgan, because it was always about, it used to piss me off actually, because
Yeah.
I'd say, why didn't you just tell me? And she'd say, why would I want to take that away from you?
Oh,
Right?
thank you,
Like,
Morgan.
right? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like,
Yes.
and it pissed me off. This was years ago, but
Oh, I'm sure it did.
in fact, when I first met her, I said to her, because I picked up on her, within
Yeah.
a few days, and I said we were already connected, and I said, because I had not had the conversations from the galactic, from her whole, from the feminine, the whole thing. And I told her, if we get to the end and I find out that you fucking knew everything from this, you know what I mean, and didn't tell me, I'm gonna be pissed. But it's just a joke. We're just having fun.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
this thing with the what you said though, um, I'm watching this. It's very interesting in these starseed lightworker groups. I look forward to the day where there's no labels, but
Yeah.
and that is where, though, and I respect everybody's reality, everybody's. Certainly, there's things that I don't understand, but the point is, nobody can do it for me. And I'm just like everybody else. So nobody gets anything for free in the universe. Everything has to be, you have to take every step, right? I mean, it's just not, it doesn't work that way. There's no leapfrogging, people and stuff.
Right, right.
But yeah, I really like that you said that, because, and one of the things that I'm finding, because what I was going to say is that I'm watching people struggle with
Yeah.
that, because that particular, even though it served us very well, that particular, it's no longer holding the degree of truth it did, because we've expanded beyond it. So you're starting to see people who are very down to earth, like yourself, you know, uh,
Thank you.
who who uh, who are open about this,
Yeah.
who are not, you know what I mean? I mean, it's a really interesting dynamic what's happening, the commerce aspect. And I'm talking light worker starseed circles. Charge, don't charge. Uh,
Right.
I am this and I am that, and I was this in a past life, and I
Mhm.
was that, and it's all kind of going to a different. It has a different connotation now. Like
Yes.
there's this new language now, because people can see things now, even if we're not conscious of it.
Oh, yeah.
They're picking up on truth. And
Mhm.
I think Julie, you mentioned Julie, she's on
Yes,
here.
I'm a new fan.
She's a great example. I mean,
Yes.
and I asked her last show we did, I said, does your stuff come from research, or does it come from,
Yeah, and it's both.
and she said both. And I'm like, cool, right. So, because a lot of times I'll come across a post. I shared one
Mhm.
today that I thought was very good, by Helen Quell, kind of a State of the Union, and I will get a download. But I
Mhm.
also recognize, obviously the dragons, that, all the different things that have come in. Morgan has given me many downloads. Trauma is a download.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Everything is a download. Every my day today was a download.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
The memory of the electrons of the cup.
hmm,
uh, there's the conscious and subconscious downloads that are happening, and that's why DNA is affected by everything. It's a receiver transmitter of epigenetic memory, more than it is the map of genes. um, and I like what you're saying too, because here we have this chance, I think. This so in anthropology, one of the things that I was able to accomplish, which I had to put in a box, it literally, because it was too dangerous, was a working predictive model about culture change that you could use to influence change at almost any level of culture if you wanted to. And the that is what you're talking about, because the sign that the change is happening really fast is when the language is changing. That means that the physical already changed, and it had to go up through all the different layers of culture to now change in the language, because people now are seeing for themselves, they're feeling for
Right.
themselves, and they don't need you to do it for them anymore.
Right.
They need you to train them how to do it and how to use their superpowers. And that's those commanders coming online in you, all of us. These it's like, instead of selfless service, one of my clients helped me swap it up to a sovereign service. I'm a
Sovereign service.
sovereign being, but now we're interconnected. It's not codependent anymore. Now it's, hey, there's a built-in connectivity. The web doesn't work without these connections. The
Right.
web of
Right.
life, Indra's net, that is both psychic, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. And you can see it in the physical reality. You can see it on all the dimensions of the brain. The brain has structured to literally, I think they mapped 11 dimensions. That's awesome, guys. That means that you have physical proof now that you are a multidimensional being. And then, just to add something really fascinating into the mix, they just discovered a new system in the body. My friend Dr. Bruno Chickley and his colleagues found the premovascular system. It's this tiny nano system inside the lymphatic system that seems to have only one purpose, and that's to carry photons around the body. And I mean, that's something I use as a
The
tool
light
here.
givers.
A light body.
The light givers, right? The light
Yes,
body. The light
the
body.
light
Yeah.
body. And I
That is
use
that your
this.
point? Is that your point? Is that
Yes,
like
yes,
a
it is my
okay,
point.
gotcha.
Because this all comes into this commander piece waking up.
Okay.
And I'm a quantum healer, and I love to work remotely, in fact, because it's so amazing and it helps people to have proof that entanglement is real,
Yeah.
because they can get that amazing relief instantly and they can feel it. It's beautiful. But what am I using? I'm using the net, of course, the Indra's net, the real internet, but I'm also using the light body in the other person's body. That's a physical, real thing. So we have this change going on, and the next level of change, the next physical reality that's going to change our language and cause this sovereign service piece to, I think, become permanent, is the commanders. I'm doing all these sessions with all these different people from all over the world, and many tens of thousands of people. And the common theme that I've seen over just the past year is that everyone is starting to realize that they have methods and knowledge and creativity and things that they had brought through over eons that they're now ready to remember. This is the great collective mind waking up and saying, I am a sovereign being, and this is now my chance to rebuild. I'm not going to focus on what I'm being told to focus on. I'm going to focus on creating right now and right now and right now. And that's what I hear you saying really clearly and repeating. Hey, this creative piece, when are we going to get to action? It's now, because here December 4th, we have this next eclipse, and the 14th is that the gate between gates, the liminal space. And this is our chance to fall back, say goodbye to all of what you thought you knew about yourself, and fall back into being a sovereign being of service, who can now remember why they came, how they did command all the way into this moment and choose the greatest end of all ages on one of the coolest planets, honestly, in my opinion, in
Me
this
too.
galaxy. movie.
I think
Or
it's.
ever.
I would put it up against anything in any of the multiverse.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah. God, what was I gonna ask you? What were you just talking about?
I feel it. We
Oh,
were
the
talking about
commander.
the commander, yeah.
Well, yeah, just the distinction between a demand and a command.
Yes.
I picked up on this in my 20s because of, by the way, that Thomas Aquinas, I the one of the first books I ever read, and I wasn't even on this path. My friend gave it to me. My bowhead friend gave it to me like at 17 years old, and it was the something of Thomas Aquinas. It was all of the essays or something like that.
Ah, yes.
But but what I was going to say is I forgot. There goes the memory. I
Thomas
forgot.
Aquinas, he really was ahead of his time on that.
Mm,
But I think he was remembering because
absolutely.
he was part of that and so, probably one of you folks on here are him. But he was part of that awakening of um, recognizing that that reality was not at all what it seemed, and from that, and he was very well spoken about it. But the commanding piece, I too also have a distinction around what is a commander versus a warrior. A warrior will carry out the laws of nature, such as destruction or creation or preservation, when they're determined to, when they have been destined to, when they have been sort of delegated to. But the commander does the delegating. And the
Yes.
commander delegates this beautiful body and all of these wonderful cells who've decided to hang out with you.
And who is
The
the commander?
commander delegates
And who is the commander?
reality.
Who is
Yeah.
the commander? Who is the commander?
There's only one.
Right.
It's the source field.
Yeah. But I
And
mean,
I
as we operate, I don't know I don't think I know the answer. I remember.
I don't necessarily do either. That's a good question. The commander
Well,
seems to be
I
the
remember
voice of a
Morgan
version of
saying.
us, right?
I remember Morgan saying a couple of years ago that the human is the manager,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, I sat with that a long time. I was like, yeah, I think this is my point because it's always a paradox,
Yeah.
right? So, like going back to the earlier thing, if I am my higher self, and in my opinion, which I'm only calling that out of humility, and you know what I mean. I don't want anyone. So what I'm saying is that the only thing keeping me from that is a belief system that I'm separate from that or I'm not that.
Yeah.
But I just happen to be. I can be that in this vehicle. I can be that manager. I can be that delegator and that commander. And I think that's what we were talking about, or what you were talking about earlier in the game. But I remember doing an exercise when I first started reading this stuff in the my early 20s. And one of the things that really stayed with me was this whole thing about command. And I used it off and on, and it worked for me. And like most humans, I got distracted. But to command to me is like an orchestration. It's not a selfish act.
Right.
It's an act of ownership. It's an
Yeah.
act of co-creation ownership. It's an act of creation for me.
A
That's the way I
sovereign
see it.
responsibility that can only be reached with humility.
Yeah, you can't fake humility.
No, man, you can't.
Can't fake humility. That's a superpower. That's a super That's a super uh,
It is.
baromet. That's a. I mean, that's that's it. The humility is and what if you look at the etymology or expand on it, humiliation, right?
Yeah.
Like like man, the stakes are high now.
Yeah.
The stakes are really high when we're not in integrity,
Right.
when we haven't corrected trajectories, because we're made up of multiple trajectories, right? Multiple streams. They, the higher self in me will embarrass the hell out of me until I say, you know what, I got it. That's the way I look at it.
I like that.
Yeah,
And then there's the humility, the humiliation, the humanity,
hmm
humus. Humus is like Rudolf Steiner, you're shooting for humus. Humus is the thing that gives life. It's the ground of the earth. It's the heart of it. Humus is the alive soil.
Yeah.
Um, Humus is the collective soil that says, we have all the elements, we have all the energetics, we have this whole spectrum of light. And from here, and that's kind of what I'm seeing when you are breaking down that word. It's
Yeah.
very beautiful.
There's
And
also
that's,
humor.
oh, yeah. Yeah,
humor
definitely.
is a humor is a big one too, right?
Yes.
I
Humor.
didn't mean to keep you so long. I'm really
I'm quite
been
happy
talking.
to hang out with
Yeah,
your beautiful heart, Todd. You're amazing.
it's fun. This is thank you very much, and it's been an hour and a half.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone, for staying. It's been really fun. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. I've been talking to Morgan about maybe going to a longer form and doing an hour and a half, give or take, hour and a half,
Yeah,
2 hours. I don't know. I just feel a lot of changes. And it's not just about Soulogy or Todd. It's you. It's
right.
I mean, you're
Lots
into
of
different
different
things.
changes.
Everybody's into different things. I mean,
Mhm.
it's it's just such a cool place to me to be here. And I know I know people have had more than I have get me out of here. Although I've had my moments get me out of here many times. But
Do.
wow, I just feel like that we are on the verge of at least having the potential, the real potential, the truth, the light of what the human standalone would call miraculous, impossible, and so on. Right?
Hmm.
I mean, imagine that there, for instance, you talked about remote viewing. So imagine there's 5% of the population that's as well versed or as experienced, let's say, as you. But imagine that number goes to 10%.
Hmm.
This type of energy or light or information or whatever you want to call it, creative seed, it doesn't it doesn't have the same math that we're used to.
Right.
It's explosive. It's beyond exponential. It's quantum. It's
Yeah.
even beyond quantum. It's like every time we're, especially these last few weeks, every time we take a step up, or to use that
Hmm.
metaphor, there's like you went from 12 monads of 12 to pull from, and you go up, and all of a sudden you've got 144 that are pulling from 144 each, meaning that each component has 144 in its monad, and it's
Yeah.
part of your monad of 144, which is part, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it's just exploding. So when you were saying earlier in the show about these uh, immediate, uh, almost like spontaneous combustion,
Yeah.
evolutionary moments, it feels like that's what we're about, what we're doing.
Yeah. That punctuated. So,
Would you?
like, we would even call it, well, we could just say explosive equilibrium.
Yeah,
And right now, everything is shook up. All these divisions are very clear, but they're becoming more and more and more clear. And it's because they can't stand what the earth and what humanity are grounding right now, which is totally the most beautiful unconditional love that just says it all exists. It all exists, therefore it is loved. And that's the only direction that I'll flow. I'll keep going. Every timeline goes to the same place. Everybody worries about timelines. No, don't. It all goes to the same place. We are in the most interesting time of many gateways all the way to the edge of the universe opening, and it's us. We're doing that.
yeah,
We're
that's
part of
that's
it.
crazy. I
Yeah,
mean,
we
that's
feel
the
it with our
that's the
absolute.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the crazy. All these cliches and these things that we were, you had the '90s with the New Age, and then and so on and
Right.
so on. But it's true.
Yeah.
It's very true. And that's the thing. Like, if it's true, then, and say the distance from not really knowing that,
Yeah.
and and then saying, oh, I accept that. Why travel all of that space? We can go here now. That's the way I see it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, if this is if this is reality, and all the stuff that we thought wasn't,
Yeah.
then why the hell am I going to even go there? You know,
I like
like,
what you were saying with Julie. Like, nope, don't have time for that. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in that particular thing in the moment. I'm a sovereign creator in service to this amazing, bright, beautiful thing that I can feel, see, know. It's right there in front of me. It's in me. It's around me. And that's what I'm going to look at.
yeah,
And yeah, I'm going to use these cool things over here, like the internet, and that's, all these different things that eventually are going to have to start helping us heal versus destroying our bodies. And there's tech that's going to help us do that. There is this very deeply loving human agenda that includes the consciousness of humanity in the ascension of the consciousness of the earth.
hmm,
That these two things, just like the cells of your body are agreeing to be you, so does earth absolutely love us so much that she's right on board with us, supporting this next level of love and acceptance, to the point of an incredible template of wisdom being offered to this galaxy that they've never had before.
I
Real
believe that.
unconditional love, real compassion, and
Hmm.
by golly, consent, because that respects sovereignty.
Yeah,
And that's this next level paradigm. That's when we get to meet and understand all of our friends that we've been with for so long in this
right on.
galaxy.
And we're not gonna. I mean, it is amazing. And the last thing I just add too is that, as Bruce says, he hates loving me. He's our Soulogy comedian. Uh, yeah, I mean, so everything's always upside down. It's always a paradox.
Yes.
We come into this thing, we're force fed, we're told humans are this small, insignificant, uh, not compassionate, destruct, all the stuff.
Yes.
And then to find out, and that's what I'm talking about, the gap, you know, it, to find out that we're actually creating everything.
Yeah.
Like, and when I say that, as they used to say that, I mean it. But also, what I'm saying is, we are the most powerful. I'm going to go and say it, the most powerful aspects in this galaxy. Because what we're doing, if we're going to go through this, either they're going
Mhm.
through it with us, or we're creating an impact, or both. Like, I used to use the example of, if just in my normal course of life, as I bring in more aspects from opposites into the spectrum, into my zero field, into my heart, that I'm healing the Anunnaki Pleiadian rift, or I'm
Yes.
healing the Orion Lyran, whatever it is.
Yes.
And that's another thing too that we should get together again and talk about, is the whole DNA connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I laugh about it, because I go, okay, well, we're changing our DNA.
Yeah, every second.
We can change our DNA,
Yeah.
like by commanding, right? And if
Yes.
that's the case, then who's the real? What is time travel?
Ooh,
What is
yeah.
that? Because, like, okay, if I'm changing my DNA, and there is the quantum, you know, aspect, uh, and I have other incarnate, and so on and so on, I'm affecting all of that, all the past,
Mhm.
all the future, all the present. Everything
Exactly.
is one, right? So that whole thing's fascinating. And to approach it from a DNA level, see, I think what one of the things that's happening now too is, we think the change is slow. But what is that? That's just that, if that's in our DNA too, let's command it. Let's do this now. I'm not
Ooh,
saying,
I'm with you.
I'm
Let's
not
do it.
saying, like, why take the fun out of it? Why not go through all the motions? What I'm trying to say is I think there's an air on this an air, an atmosphere on this earth of I've had enough of this shit. Let's
Yes.
I'm not going to tap out, but let's get it on. Let's do
Yes.
it. And
Radical sovereignty, radical surrender,
yeah,
radical navigation of time, because time is an ocean, not a line,
yeah,
and claiming each moment. If you make a micro movement on an ocean, that's actually a huge trajectory change
yeah,
in the long run. And that's each moment for you. That's all of us. That's time travel. And then dropping the whole concept of time, to find that the gift is timelessness, and that now these two things, and we process them even as like a trauma almost, time and timelessness, like
yeah,
regret and bitterness. And then we have, of course, this feature of consciousness of timelessness, because I am the voice of luminosity. How the heck did that work through the universe? But I am with you 100%. This is the pinnacle place. This is where the galaxy is going to change from here, folks.
yeah.
You got invited, and you're also a badass because you
That's
took
what I'm
the
saying.
invitation.
There's we've had quite a few people come on this show that have the vision or whatever you want to call it, and Franco was one of them.
Yeah.
There's billions of souls lined up to come here. So
Oh yeah,
not only are we here, and that's an honor, we were picked because
absolutely.
there was standing room only, so to speak. Hey, it's been a pleasure meeting you. I really
Namaste,
enjoyed
Todd.
it. Namaste to you, and we'll do it again if you're open to it.
I'd love that. It's been
And
really, really fun. Thank you.
absolutely, yeah, it's been a pleasure. And this is all we got for today. I can't even believe that I'm even sitting here.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
I'm like totally like whacked.
Everybody
But
drink water and keep surrendering. Back, back, back.
there you go. There you go. Okay, so we're gonna be. There was something I was gonna say. First, let me just say thank you everybody for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this every day. It's been a blessing this last few days. It always works out that way when the end of the month comes and I start tripping. then, you know, it's beautiful the way this happens. Energy is beautiful. But I just want to say that, and also I think we're going to be coming out with some. We're trying to get reorganized on the schedule. So I know there's a lot of people that have written, and I haven't answered. We haven't answered, and I just want to let everybody know that we always get. Sometimes it takes a while, but you'll get an answer. We respect everybody, and everybody deserves an answer, and we try to get everybody on that we can. Uh, and so I just wanted to say that while we had this space that we've all created. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you again. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. And talk to you later.
Thank
Peace
you.
out.